I'm Brian from RC Workboat Haven. Welcome to part 6 of the bad weather ship build. Part 6 is a series of steps that we have to take to prepare this boat for its first water test. We'll be dealing with deck seals. We'll fabricate a silicone seal for the hatches. We're going to work on hold downs for the hatches. We'll put some pool noodles in the deck house. We're going to do a little bit of an electronics overview. And at the end of this video, we'll have this boat being rolled over completely down at the water. And then we'll check it for how much water got below decks. Thanks for watching. Now I'm going to go over all the latex painted parts on the model and make sure that there's no scratches or thin spots anywhere. I'll be doing the inside of the bulwarks, the top sides, and the bottom. After everything's touched up, I'll apply 2 coats of varathane. That's going to give us a really tough plastic covering all over the model. Now I have 2 coats of varathane on the decks, hatches, and hull. It's closed cell window sealer foam. It's like a tape. I've just put temporary pieces here so that the hatch lines up on the combing. I'm going to be running 1/4 20 bolts up through the underside of the deck. There'll be one aft here between the 2 hatches, and then one fastener forward going through another bracket. The 1/4 20 bolt will stick up through these little metal brackets, and I'm going to use threaded rod nuts, and I'll make these look like bollards. At this stage, I've marked the holes in 1, 2, 3, 4 spots, and now I'm going to go through with a 1/4 inch bit and run these bolts through and get everything in position. So here are my bollard hold down nuts. There's one up forward, 2 amidships, and 1 down here astern. They look a bit shiny at this point, but they should be okay when they're painted flat black. So now I'm going to cut the bolts off at the right length. So this is what I'm working with now. I've run the 1/4 20 bolts through and put a nut. Have these bolts fairly square, and that seemed to work all right. So I'll take them off the deck now and cut them all to the right length. So now the hatches are fastened down. I've epoxied the heads of the bolts here on the underside of the deck. That'll make them much stronger and they won't leak. Up top, I've put a little bit of flat black oil-based model paint just on the nuts that go through the deck here. On the 4 hold-down nuts, I've drilled through and put a piece of 1/8 inch rod and filled the end with epoxy. So they do look a little bit more shippy. I put some black Gorilla tape on the underside of these tabs. I have the pod and receiver lined up so that I can run the antenna easily through the center part of the deck bridge here. I've measured the diameter of the wire and it's about 1 millimeter. So I've taken a small eraser, drilled it out. I put a little bit of black magic marker on this eraser. I run the antenna through the eraser, bring it down to the hole, and press it through. And I can feel the eraser has gone through maybe a 1/16 of an inch under the deck. That's pretty tight. I don't think it's enough to let a drop of water down. So that's a little bit of DIY work if I've ever seen it. I've got some string here from eBay, and I'm just finishing off the winch on the after end of the deck house. I've reinforced this little plastic overhang here, and I'll drill that out. So now I've filled the deck house, pilot house, with pool noodles, which are really easy to cut with a knife. Fit them all in. There's the odd gap, but it should give plenty of flotation. All of the Haven 34 hulls required a minimum of 3 pounds of ballast up forward to balance. I use these 1 pound weights. It's 1 inch by 1 inch by 3 inches cold roll steel, and it's in a Ziploc bag. I'll set this up forward right about here, and then if I want to add more weight, I could do it in front of it or behind it. And I'll just secure that in that spot with duct tape. I'll carry at least another 3 pounds with me for balance when I go down to try the boat first time in the water. I've touched up a few spots with paint and varathane. So here's the bad weather ship. To get a tight, flexible seal on the hatches and the deck, I'm going to use 100% silicone. If I use a bead of silicone here between the deck and the deck flange, it won't just pop off once the deck bolts are removed. So with silicone, I'm pretty sure if I had to remove the deck, I can get in with a knife through the hatch openings and make a little cut and work the deck off. I'll also use silicone here around the hatches. So I've placed the deck on top of a 1/4 inch bead. It's held in position by the 2 fore and aft bolts. And I'm just gently pressing it down enough to make sure that I've got contact between the deck and the flange. I don't want to squeeze out silicone all the way around the perimeter of the deck. I'm putting a large bead along the inside of the hatch. That should be plenty. I've cut some strips of kitchen Glad wrap. I'm placing it over top of the silicone bead. I think this is called cling wrap. And now I'm going to set it over the hatch opening. And there's the hatch in place. Now it'll take a while for this silicone to set up, but I'll certainly be able to remove it and check to make sure it has cured. And now I'll cover it. And there we are. Now, hopefully this won't take too long to set up. and we'll line it up. Looks pretty good. So now 2 days later, the seam that I've put between the deck and the flange has hardened up and cured. So that should be a good watertight seal. So now I have the first layer of silicone on the hatches. Both hatches are sitting flush with the deck. There's no real gap at all. Inside the hatch here, we've got the basic foundation of our gasket. Some spots could have used more silicone. The cling wrap has left wrinkles in the silicone and so on. On the after hatch, I put a little bit more silicone on, so we've got a bigger foundation here. But on both hatches, I want to add a second layer of silicone, one without any cling wrap marks on it. And I want to apply enough silicone on the second layer to raise the hatch off the deck about 3/32 of an inch. And that will give us something to actually screw down our hold downs to and force the hatch against the coaming. Using a knife, I'm cleaning up the bottom edge of both hatches. I've cut some spacers. I've placed them around the decks. This is the height that I want my gasket to be after the next layer of silicone. I've put a bit of Vaseline around the deck coamings, and the cling wrap will stick to that a little bit. This allows me to position the cling wrap and avoid too many wrinkles. I've also got my 3/32 spacers here. So now I'm ready to apply another layer of silicone here and place it on top of this. Here's a really heavy layer of silicone on the hatch. Here's the second layer on the after hatch. So now both hatches are sitting on the 3/32 blocks. I'll just add a few of these weights. So here we are the next day. The second layer of silicone has set up, and I've got a nice smooth bead all the way around the hatch. I'm going to clean up this area here with a sharp knife. I'll do that to both hatches, and then we'll take a look at our gasket. So here are the two silicone deck seals cleaned up. I thought it would be a good time to just show a few basics for someone who's very unfamiliar with anything to do with radio control. The receiver is located in the boat, and it has little numbers on it that go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 channels. Opposite each one of those numbers is a row of 3 little spikes. Those are like terminals. And this is where we connect up the servo and the electronic speed control. And here's a typical ESC here from eBay, and it has one small jack on it that fits into the receiver. The other thing that fits into the receiver is the servo. That's it. Those are the only two connections you have. The ESC also has an on-off switch. So I turn on the transmitter, and then I turn on the boat, with this switch here. It also has a jack for one battery. I carry 2 batteries. I do that for balance, plus it gives me backup if I am out for a couple of hours. I've always got a bit more power available. This ESC has leads for 2 motors, but if I just connected 1 motor, everything runs the same. An option to do 2. So here's a little thing that a new person wouldn't necessarily know. Where do you actually connect these little terminals? Well, I've got the ESC fitting in my hand right here, and it fits in the number 2 spot. Oh, and I have the black wire facing out. And here we have the servo, and it fits in spot number 1 with the brown wire facing out. So a good way to remember it that comes from the RC crawler world is 1 to turn, 2 to burn. And there we have it. I just simply put these items in this little box. Well, I hope this was a little bit of help. So here's the bad weather ship, all rigged and ready to go. Tomorrow's going to be a mild day for this time of year up here on Georgian Bay, +9. So we'll take it down to the lake, and I'll have weights with me. We'll balance the boat on the water line, and then we'll test it for water tightness. We'll give it a rollover or 2 and find out if any water makes its way below deck. So here I am down at the lake. Got my gear set up on the shore here. It's hard to believe, but 1 week ago there was 8 inches of snow in here. The water hadn't yet frozen over. And now it's all gone except for a few spots. That is Georgian Bay out there. The wind is from the southwest today, so I've got an offshore breeze in here. I'll have to make sure the boat doesn't get away from me or it is gone. But it looks good. So I'm going to put the boat in the water now, and we'll adjust the water line with some weights. So I've put 2 1-pound weights just in front of the original 3 pounds. I'm going to tape that in now, and I'm now turning on the transmitter, and I'm going to turn on the boat. So now I'm going to put the hatches on and screw them down. And now we'll go forward and see what we get. Well, we have lots of power. I think it may be a bit heavy on the bow. I'm a little bit leery about playing too much here because that wind's really gusting from the southwest. So if anything went wrong, my boat is going for a trip on Georgian Bay. Permanently. Well, okay, so that's as much as I'm going to do right now on this. I want to do a water tightness test. Look at that that wind. Really blowing here. Look at that. Okay, so I'm going to bring her over and we're going to roll it and see what we get. In fact, I'll leave the boat turned on. Look at that wind. Wow. And I'm going to just roll it over to beam's end and see what we get. There she is, beam's end. Comes right up. Water went right off the deck and down those scuppers. Let's try it like this. She's right over. Okay, so she'll right from there. And we got water certainly all over the deck. So let's put her all the way under. It won't right from there, but it will if you give it a little push. So there might be a spot totally upside down here that needs a little bit of help. Not much, just a few degrees. So I figure any weather that will do that would probably have more wave after it to right the boat. Let's try it one more time. Going out a bit deeper. Let's roll her over. Oh. There she is. We'll do it one more time. Oh, look at all that water. Now let's see if it runs. I'll just bring it in here. Get my glove off. And she runs after a rollover. All right. So if there's water in here, wasn't enough to kill the electronics. Bring her around. Woo! There we go. She's a ship, all right. Bad weather ship. There she is. Right after about 3 rollovers. And running happily. Ho-ho! Okay. Let's pop the decks open and see how much water we got below. So now I had the hatches off, and there's looks like about one shot glass of water has got into the bilge. I don't see any water around my electronics. A couple of little drops here and there, but looks to me to be pretty darn good. I could still comfortably run the boat after that number of rollovers. So that was a successful water test for the bad weather ship. We were very lucky that day because the date was November 26th and the temperature was 9 degrees Celsius. So that's very warm for Georgian Bay up in Canada at this time of year. But we have plenty of nasty weather ahead of us, and I don't think this bad weather ship wants to miss it. I sure hope you don't. Subscribe today. Thanks for watching.